There's only one thing that's holding you back in your personal and your professional journey with whatever success means to you. And the only thing stopping you isn't strategies or a certain piece of knowledge or the upbringing that you had, any of those things. The only thing that's standing in your way is your limiting beliefs, the story that you tell yourself about why it is you can't have something, why it is something in your past happened the way it happened. And the thing is, we all have stories. And sometimes we have stories that hold us back, but other times we can take that story, we can change certain elements, and we can turn it into a story that empowers us to take those steps forward. The beautiful thing is you are the main character of this story. It is in the first person. And today we're going to talk about how you can transform those limiting beliefs and that limiting story in order to take the next step towards your success. Welcome to the Be Better broadcast. The only fee for this information and this conversation and this show is to share this show with one person if you take away any piece of value from it. Again, we don't run ads. We don't have sponsors. Our show has grown over the past year now. It's actually a year and 1 month because you're part of the team, and you're the best part of the team because you're the only reason our show has grown the way it has, because we don't want to interrupt your viewing experience. So if you take anything away, which you certainly will with our guest today, Kevin Palmieri, then share this show with just one person. So without further ado, let's talk about how we can transform your limiting beliefs. Today, we are talking to Kevin. And for those who don't know Kevin is the host of the top 100 global podcast called The Next Level University, which has 700 plus episodes and listeners in over 100 countries. When he reached rock bottom in his mid-20s, he decided to go all in on self-improvement, and he was determined to overcome his anxiety and depression. Years later, he hosts a podcast with thousands of downloads in over 100 different countries, growing his business and recording over 700 episodes. It's his mission to help other people get unstuck and reach the next level of their lives. Kevin, it's a pleasure to have you here, brother.
Brandon, I appreciate it very much. A wonderful, wonderful introduction. Hopefully I can live up to that introduction and things don't go horribly wrong. That's the goal. That's the goal today.
I think we're going to have a good time. So I got to ask you, man, because it's very seldom that I talk with somebody who's got over 700 podcast episodes. Okay. And before the conversation, you mentioned that you film daily. Is that true?
Yeah. So this is how I know this interview was set up a while ago. We have 922 episodes as of today.
Wow.
So we do seven episodes a week. So you got to figure that's 30 a month, depending on the month. So yeah. Yep.
So what has you coming back every single day to record episodes? Because I know, just for everyone listening, what you do isn't just the podcast. Like, you help people produce their podcast. You're in a partnership with Next Level University. You have coaching clients. Like, what has you coming back every single day to record a new podcast on top of all your other responsibilities and roles?
That is a great question. And let me preface it with this. What I'm about to say did not resonate with me for a long time, and I didn't believe it was possible. So I always want to start there, because limiting beliefs are something that I still deal with to this day. But it's the goal, Brandon. We want to have the most successful podcast ever in terms of the self-improvement industry. That is really what we're playing for. I'm not playing for to have a quote-unquote successful show. Like, we're genuinely trying to change the world, and that's why we've built things the way we have. And somebody asked me that the other day. They said, oh, you really must love podcasting to do 7 episodes a week. And I do. It's my favorite thing. My absolute favorite thing in the world is podcasting. But it's all based on the goal that we want to impact every human on the planet. And I do believe that the goal dictates the journey, and you just have to make sure that you enjoy the journey enough. But yeah, everything else is awesome and runs into the business, but the podcast for us is the main thing, and we got to keep the main thing the main thing.
I love that. Yeah, no, I feel that, man. How long have you been doing the podcast, by the way?
I started by myself. It was called the Hyperconscious Podcast, my favorite name in the world, in April of 2017. So I started it myself.
You've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
That's great. Congratulations on where it's begun.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. In the beginning, it was like everybody else. It was 1 episode a week. It was very much a hobby. And then eventually down the road, later in my story, I left what I was doing to pursue this dream, and I was broke for 3 years and couldn't afford Christmas presents for my girlfriend, my fiance now, and just like everybody else, we started one episode a week trying to figure it out, and we just kept going. We just kept going, and every episode we learn. That's the one benefit is, yeah, I'm way better than I was in the beginning, but it's only because I know way more. I've just done more reps, and the more reps you do, the more opportunity for growth you ultimately have.
Absolutely. You know, someone when oh man, who was it who said it? We were talking about confidence and his name will come to me, but we were talking about confidence and he's like, you have to do the reps when it comes to confidence. And reps is an acronym, right? The R stands for you have to reflect, right, on where you are and also where you want to go. The E is you must educate yourself in this area that you want to be more confident in. So by doing it more, you have educated yourselves on what to expect, what challenges you can face. And then the P, he said, stands for practice. You just need to do it over and over and over. And you've been doing this now for hundreds of episodes. If you had to give me one of your top insights that you've gleaned over 900 episodes now, which blows my mind, what would you say is one of the top insights you've taken away, just not even from podcasting, but from doing something for so long, so consistently and sustainably?
Yeah, I would say your time perspective dictates your success. So if you only see where you are today, it's going to be very difficult for you to see what is possible for you. And if you can't see what's possible for you, it's going to be very difficult for you to see what's probable for you if you continue going. Again, in the beginning, I had no idea any of this was going to happen the way it has, but I'm blessed that I have a business partner who is a visionary. And he saw all of this for us, and he sees what's happening 15 years from now. I'm very blessed in that. So I'm more of the operator than the visionary, but that's been the biggest lesson for me is your life can look completely different in 5 years, completely different, but it's not going to look different in a day. It's not going to look different in a week. It's not going to look different in a month. It's not going to look that much different in a year probably, but when you start to compound things, it can get wild pretty quickly, but you have to have that understanding and that time perspective of everything I'm doing behind the scenes now will pay off. I just can't pinpoint exactly when, and I can't pinpoint exactly what it's going to look like. I know it will be better, quote unquote, than it is right now. I just don't know in what way.
Oh, damn, brother. Damn. You know, I'm just curious, and then I want to dive into your backstory. When you started this in 2017, you were in that same boat of you didn't know what your life would look like 5 years from then. Now it's been just over 5 years, right? It's 2022, so we're like 6 years over now. What is one thing about your life today that you never could have expected back in 2017?
Oh man, there's so many things. In total, between our show and other shows, I've been on 1,059 podcast episodes. I never, ever, ever, ever expected that. Alan and I have been paid thousands of dollars to speak. I never expected that. And then being heard in 120 countries on every continent is just very, 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 very strange for me. It's very humbling, and it makes me hungry to continue doing what we're doing, but I never expected that. And then on a deeper personal level, having true confidence is something that I never predicted I would have. And this journey has created so much opportunity, so much confidence, so much fulfillment. I never expected that. I didn't have very high hopes for my future when I started this. I didn't have very high hopes for my future ever, really.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking, how old are you now?
I am 32.
Okay, so we're pretty close. I'm 28, you're 32. My personal development journey for me started when I was 21, and it was at a point where, you know, I was just at a very low point. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was heavily overweight. I didn't even want to leave my apartment because I didn't want to see people and let them see who I'd become. And I know that was one of the most difficult points of my life, but it was one of the most rewarding points because it's led to where I am now. And you and I share a similar story, actually, where I was in my early 20s. You mentioned you were in your mid-20s when you really began and embarked on this personal development journey. Yeah. You mentioned that you had all the external semblances of success. You had, you know, the nice home, you had the beautiful girlfriend, you had the things that you wanted, but still you were unfulfilled. And you even mentioned sitting at the end of your bed, being depressed about your life. And I have many questions about that, but like, take us back to you at that point, because that was only 7, 8, maybe 9 years ago that you were in that place. Like, tell me about that journey that's led you to this point now. What was the moment you decided that you had to change?
Yeah, just for a little backstory that I think adds context. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother, and I didn't meet my dad, really meet and understand that he was my father until I was 27. So for most of my childhood, I was always the underdog, and for most of my life, I've been the underdog. So I am the never quit kid on Instagram. I have never quit tattooed on my arm. Like that's kind of part of who I am. And when everybody in my circle, all of my friends decided that after high school they were going to go away to college, I realized that that wasn't for me. I realized that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do with my life. And I was the gas station attendant in our town for 5 years. I went and worked as a personal trainer. I cleaned floors and toilets at a hospital. I was a truck driver. I was a forklift operator. And I was in construction. And I got this very unique opportunity at this, it was kind of like a mini trade school where you go in for 2 weeks, you learn something, and then you get picked up by a company. And I said, you know what? I don't know what else I'm going to do with my life, so let me try this out and see what happens. And the class I signed up for was called weatherization. So, Brandon, we would come to your building or your school or your police department, your fire department, and it was our job to make your building more energy efficient. So we worked for the state, we worked for government. It was really good. And I remember the day that I graduated from this trade school, the lady who brought me in said, so we have a really unique opportunity for you. We're going to set you up with one of the best companies. The only catch is you're going to have to travel. And I said, honestly, I'm not interested in traveling. And she said, well, think about it. You're going to make anywhere from $40 to $80 an hour. And I said, wait, what? What do you mean? And she said, well, you work for the state and the government, so the money's really good. And I said, I'm in. Like, let's do that. That's awesome. And I ended up meeting my boss one time. I met him. He called me after that. My second time ever meeting my boss, I got in a car with him. We drove 7 hours or 8 hours from Massachusetts to Delaware. I moved into a house with 7 strangers I had never met, and then I proceeded to learn a job that I had never done. And I remember the week I got there, I didn't have enough money to get groceries. All I got was bread, deli meat, and chips. And I had a gym membership that could travel, so I found the gym. That was all I had when I got down there. I didn't have anything else really, which was brutal at the time. And everything was going really well. I ended up meeting somebody. I had a girlfriend. We moved in together, and everything, again, from the outside seemed like it was amazing. I had a sports car. We had a new apartment. I had the body of my dreams because I had just done a bodybuilding show. Everything seemed awesome. But my girlfriend at the time wanted to move across the country and chase her dreams. And I said no. I gave her every reason in the book why she shouldn't do it, and she ended up leaving me shortly after that. And I'm glad she did, proud of her for doing that. Her and I are on good terms because we've talked after, and that was the absolute right thing for her to do. But when she left, I had to look in the mirror for the first time, the proverbial mirror of who I was as a man, and I realized I was super insecure, I was self-conscious, I was anxious, I was depressed, and I put so much of my internal happiness and fulfillment on external things. And that was my initial dive into self-improvement, personal development. I started listening to Tony Robbins, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all that stuff. But I really leaned into positive affirmations. And I would say, you're handsome, you're talented, you're worthy. And this year you will make the most money you've ever made in your life. And you will see that that is a theme in my life. So the next year I got a promotion. And I was a foreman for the company I was working for. And since I was a foreman, I was on almost every job we had from start to close. And we got to the end of the year, and I had been on the road for 10 out of the 12 months of that year. Hotel to hotel. I was never home. I was only home on weekends. And we were not staying in nice hotels. We were staying in very rundown, sketchy places, and it wasn't fun. But I remember standing at my kitchen table because my ex-girlfriend had taken my chairs, and I was never home, so I didn't buy them. And I slid open the envelope for my last pay stub of the year, and I made $100,000. I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. But the same thing happened, Brandon. I remember nothing changed. I was still insecure. I was still looking for more. I still felt lonely. I felt empty. And that is when the podcast began. For most of my life, I had been living unconsciously. I said, what's the opposite of unconscious? Hyperconscious. And that was when I started that. And like I said, in the beginning, it was me trying to push out one episode a week, just interviewing friends, trying to figure out what I was doing. And as I started that, and people reached out and I was having deep conversations that actually mattered. I just cared about my job less and less and less by the day. And I would call out of work. I was leaving work early. I was showing up to work late. And it would get to the point where I would have to be in New Jersey, which is 5 hours from where I was living at the time, for 7 a.m. I would sleep in my bed from 10 p.m. until like 1:30. I'd get up and drive 5 hours straight to the job. I'd work an 8-hour day, and then I'd go hit the gym after. And Fridays was the opposite. I would do the same thing on Fridays, except the opposite. And it was just, it kept getting worse and worse, and I didn't want to do it. My attitude was terrible. I was so sick of it. And I remember this was my rock bottom basement moment that changed everything forever. I woke up probably 5:15. My alarm goes off. Crusty hotel room in New Jersey, winter morning. I slide to the edge of the bed and I'm lacing up my work boots. And it's just one of those mornings where it's just, I don't know if I can do this. I do not know if I can do this today. I do not want to do this. This is brutal. And it was like there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time. And every single one of these televisions was on a different channel. And one was saying, you're stuck here forever. You'll never find another job where you make $100 an hour. Like you got lucky here. What will your friends think? What will your family think? And do you really think you could be a successful podcaster? And that last one was heavy because that's what I wanted to do. And in that moment, I felt like if I ended my life, I would take my problems with me. And it was a dark place. And that was probably the third or fourth time I had had suicidal thoughts over the previous couple of years. Now, luckily, I had my business partner, who's now my best friend and brother at this point. And I messaged him and said, hey, I'm really going through it. This is what I'm thinking about. I don't know why. And he said, Kev, so much has changed for you over the last few years, but your environment hasn't. You've really learned yourself and you focused on growth, but your environment isn't really growing around you. It's probably time for a change. And I left that job 3 or 4 months later and went full-time into speaking, podcasting, coaching, and consulting. And again, I'd love to say everything worked out and happily ever after, but the next 3 years were brutal. Just being broke, going $35,000 into credit card debt, whatever it took, whatever it took to make sure that we could keep going. That was, panic attacks on the regular, just so many things happening behind the scenes, but we just kept going. And now here we are, 920 episodes, 120 countries, 500,000 downloads, on course right now to do $500,000 in revenue this year over the next 12 months. So everything has really turned around, but there's been many, many, many opportunities to call it quits and throw in the towel. And I'm very grateful and blessed that we haven't.
Whoa, what a story, dude.
I appreciate that.
Oh my God. And there's many different things I want to dive into there, but it's so fascinating to me that, and by the way, I really do feel like you are one person who shares a very similar story with me. I started going to school because I thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to be a lawyer because I knew lawyers made a lot of money. And in my mind, money was like the determining factor between being happy and not being happy. And I started to go to school to be a lawyer, and I got into a sales job that I was with for the next 10 years. And I remember the first year in, I made 60 grand in this sales job. And that was while studying for school and taking online courses and like 90% focus on school, 10% on work. And I said to my manager, like, should I continue going to school? I've already reached my goal of wanting to make 60 grand a year. And I did that with this job, not even being a lawyer. And he's like, dude, drop out of school. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean drop out of school? And he's like, Brandon, he's like, you've already reached your goal. What is that degree and title going to do for you that you don't already have? And I was like, damn, you're right. And I dropped out. And the next year I made 90,000. And by the age of 21 or 22, I made over $100,000 selling cell phones. And again, I had all the things. I had the car. I had a beautiful fiance at the time. Now she's my wife. I had everything that the external world would say, wow, you've got it all, right? I drove my BMW past the high school I used to go to school at. People saw me and I was like, I felt good about it. But then I got home and sunk back into the reality that I had the money, but I had nothing else. My health lacked, my finances lacked. Even though I was making a lot, I was heavily in debt buying things that I did not need. And it's fascinating to me that and it sounds like it was the same for you. You didn't want that traveling job until they said to you, you're going to make $40 to $50 an hour or more doing this. And you're like, you turned around immediately and you said, yes, let's do that. Like, what do you think the allure is? Or I'll ask you your personal experience. Like, why do you think that allure of more money was so strong for you to immediately change your mind? Did you grow up in a place where you didn't have much money? Is that what you thought success lied on? Like, what was the reason for you?
Yeah, I think that I grew up in a lower middle class family. So a lot of the conversations we had were, hey, are we going to be able to make rent this month? That was a conversation that happened fairly often. So I always had a weird relationship with money, and I assumed that everybody who has money always looks like they're really happy. Money must be the way. And I think the allure to everybody really is, and I'm sure you've heard this, Brandon, money doesn't buy happiness, but everybody wants to find out for themselves. And I think that I always try to tell that story based on, look, I thought it was going to buy me happiness too, but you're not looking for happiness. You're looking for purpose. Humans aren't looking for happiness. There's happiness in the next bag of donuts, the next bag of chips, the next Call of Duty, whatever it is. That's happiness. Happiness is moment to moment. Fulfillment is based on you pursuing something greater than yourself. And I think human beings, I had the conversation, a very similar conversation with somebody yesterday. This is somebody who I haven't talked to in a long time, former client. And I said, how's business? Like, how's everything going? And she said, you know, it's strange. I'm on track to do my first 100,000 ever, but I'm like a 5 out of 10 happy. And I said, yeah, because when you make that money, you expect that everything to change, right? And she said, yeah, and everything's the same. I said, you're just not fulfilled. What you're doing does not fulfill you. There's a difference between filling your bank account and filling your heart. It's a giant difference. And I think the issue is people put their P's in the wrong order. I was focused on profit. Profit. There was no passion. There was no purpose. I didn't care. And I think if you put profit first, you're in line to end up burning out and realizing that's where the midlife crisis comes from. But if you put passion or purpose first, I think of it this way. When you jump in the pool to chase money, you'll stay in the pool for as long as you can before you have enough money and you get out. When you jump in the pool chasing after purpose or passion, you'll have to stay swimming as long as you want to keep doing what you love. And I think that's the only sustainable recipe for fulfillment. We didn't get lucky. We didn't have any breaks. We just kept going and learning. And I wanted to keep doing this. On episode 7 of the podcast, Brandon, it was called Chase Your Effing Dreams. That was the title of the podcast. And I was so miserable at my job. And it's interesting because my beginning episodes kind of take everybody through my story in real time. And I remember saying, my goal, my dream life is to wake up when I want, to podcast with amazing people, to have an amazing relationship that I can pour into as I wish, to go to the gym when I want, to be my own boss. That was my goal in episode 7. And 915 episodes later, here we are, and I get to do that. But I'm also nowhere close to my other goals. And I just think it's when we're taught to goal set, so many of us are taught that we're supposed to get the goal, not that we're supposed to create a goal that makes us become something way greater than we ever would be. It's not about the goal. It's about who you become in the process, or who you must become in the process. And you may never get the goal, but you'll always be better off trying. And I think that's an important distinction that a lot of people aren't taught.
Yeah, well said.
I appreciate that.
You know, I'm just going to repeat that because that's powerful. You might not get the goal, but you become someone who you never expected you could even become. Yeah. Right. It's like the Jim Rohn quote. It's literally like the same thing. It's not about achieving the goal. It's about who you become in the process of achieving the goal. And you even said, like, you didn't immediately, when you first discovered personal development, you didn't immediately discover your purpose. You even began the podcast while you were still in that job that you didn't love. So you began it even while you were in it, and you only got out of it when you had that conversation with your partner and you said, hey, you know, I don't know why I'm thinking this way. And it was because of your environment, which that I don't really hear people talk about it in that way. When people talk about environment, they talk a lot about, you know, the people you spend the most time around, but sometimes the environment that you've been in for the last 5 years, 10 years, maybe even more, is actually the thing that's holding you back. For you, when you did first discover personal development, I know how it was for me. I had a mentor actually introduce me to the world by giving me The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And great book, and I recommend it to everybody. And it was very bizarre to me to read that your thoughts become things and that you can truly mold and create your life the way that you want it to be. And I was like, well, this is kind of cheesy stuff, right? Like, what was your first exposure to the world of personal development? Like, how did you discover it yourself?
Alan has been, it's interesting because, and this is part of my journey, is getting over insecurity surrounding working with Alan. Because I started the company. This is my quote unquote, this was my podcast. This was my business, but he's been mentoring me since day one, since him and I reconnected. So Alan and I were friends in middle school. I played spin the bottle with him in the Popular Girls in his basement. Like, we were very tight back then. In high school, we kind of had a falling out because I was super insecure and he was unreasonably confident, on probably arrogant sometimes. And we always talk about that. And we reconnected through, I don't know how, I think we just started talking, but he messaged me one day and said, hey, I have a podcast. I want you to come on. So I ended up going on Alan's podcast. It was called Conversations Change Lives. And that was the precursor to me starting my show. I was Alan's first guest. Alan was my first guest. And then we ended up partnering up. And, you know, that's the interesting thing, is people who watch us and listen to us only see what happens on the microphone. But I've had most of my growth behind the scenes. Alan and I record from 10 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. on Mondays. So we call it Marathon Mondays. That's where we hammer out, at least, our goal is to do 6 episodes. It depends on what else is going on with the business. But we're talking about the universe and human behavior and ego and habits and money. And I learned more in a Monday with Alan than I learned in 4 years of high school. It's wild. It's wild. So yeah, I was introduced to personal development, self-improvement by Alan, and he has taught me more than any other human being on earth. By far.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm very blessed.
I think it's really cool how you give him so much credit.
That's taken years. It really has. Yeah. One time we did an episode on sales and Alan was asking me questions. I didn't know anything about sales at the time. Alan knew way more about sales. You know, he was a 1% earner at 23 or something. So we call it a drive to 5. In the beginning, I was a 0. I was super insecure. I didn't think I deserved a mentor. I was afraid to try. My self-worth was terrible, very, very low. My self-belief was very, very low. And Alan was very high, unreasonably high belief. Alan doesn't understand how people don't understand that they can do anything. He's just a robot like that. He thinks anything is possible. And it is, really, I mean, when you think about it. But he didn't necessarily think he needed a mentor. He didn't really think he needed to ask for help. He was a 10. I was a 0. Together, we've driven to 5, where we're both the most humble we've ever been, but we're the most knowledgeable we've ever been. And it's taken me years and years and years to realize that it's not helping me, it's not helping the business, and it's not helping the world to try to ego up and say, I'm the one who created all this. Alan's the CEO. I'm not even the CEO of the company I created. I'm the CFO, which is great. But that was a tough thing of, wait, you're going to be like the head of the company? But I do believe it's what's best. And I think that I'm doing everybody, including myself, a disservice if I let my ego lead, especially when it comes to that.
Oh, man. I think that's one of the most valuable pieces of this entire conversation is, number one, you can't get anywhere alone, right?
Right.
And number two, taking that ego, putting it aside, because I'm a high ego individual too, right? I'm the first person to admit that. And sometimes you have to put the ego aside for the betterment of the mission itself.
Yeah.
Which is to reach everyone in the world, which is a giant mission that's going to require a very, very low ego, because it's going to require working with a lot of different people in order to move that mission along. Yeah. So that's super cool.
I appreciate that very much. It's been painful, Brandon, because you're a podcaster. You get to see behind the curtain of a lot of people. Many people aren't who they say they are. Many, like more than I'd like to admit. And my goal is always this: when we get off this interview, I want to be the same person behind the scenes as I am right here. That's my goal. I don't ever want somebody to meet me. And again, there's a fine line, right? But I don't ever want somebody to meet me and be disappointed. I don't ever want that. Alan and I gave a speech at a school last week, and I had one of the students message me and say, hey, I said hi to you. Or no, she said, I saw you in the hallway. And I said, you should have said hi. And she said, I did say hi. You didn't hear me. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want you to think I was ignoring you. I was just probably in flow or whatever it was, running back to the bathroom so I could get back in the classroom. I want my conversations and relationships behind the scenes to be real. And, you know, we worked on character for the first 3 years. That's what it was. It was us sitting in a dark room after we podcasted, talking about things that we didn't like about ourselves. That's just how it is. For the first 500 episodes, I introduced the podcast as Ladies and Gentlemen. And then my fiance said, you know, you could probably be more inclusive of all individuals if you left that part out. Now it's Next Level Nation. Welcome back to another very special As Always episode. So that is the goal, the character part. I think so many people want to find a level of success that their character cannot sustain. And when they get that level of success, it crashes and burns. I don't ever want that to happen. I'd rather be broke and build my character than be rich and lose it all. And now we're starting to have some wealth come through, but my goal is to make sure it's sustainable. I don't want to build a business I can't sustain. I do not want to be in a relationship I cannot sustain. I don't want to build a body I can't sustain. There has to be a level of sustainability built in.
When you sat down in that dark room and you wrote down the things that you didn't like about yourself, and you went to work on character, what did that process look like? So you'd write down what you didn't like about yourself, and what did you do with that information?
Just be conscious of it and then let that start to leak into our behavior. The first step, I think, is awareness, and awareness is the hardest part, especially when it's something to do with your character. It's just, you know, when I was young, I know I said dumb things that I regret. Of course. I think everybody does. But how do you respond to that? Do you regret it because you did it again, or do you regret it because your awareness is higher now and now it's your goal and one of your life's purposes to be the best version of you? That's a huge part of it. And then the other part of it too, Brandon, is in the very beginning, Alan and I were having a competition for who could become the best man. That was one of our things, is I will have a bigger heart than you, Alan, forever. That's my goal. My goal is to out-heart you. So we always had a friendly competition when it came to that. But I've seen too much ego hurt people. And I think one of the things was, in the beginning of our journey, most of our listeners were women. And one of the benefits and detriments of getting to know your listeners at a deep level like we do is you get to, unfortunately, you hear a lot of horror stories. I've heard so many stories of male ego hurting females, and I can't have it. I can't be it. That's one of the things that drives me every single day. I won't have it. I won't have it. It won't happen in our community. I am vehemently against it.
100%. 100%, brother. I think this conversation about ego is so important for everyone because it hurts other people. Yeah. But, you know, even most of all, that ego lives with that person throughout the days, every single day, even when they're not with the person that they are abusing in whatever way that is, right? Mentally or physically. And that ego I remember I did my first psychedelic experience actually about 6 months ago now. And it was a complete, and I've talked about it plenty of times. I won't get into it again, but it was a complete shedding of the ego. And I remember I got home afterwards and I was sitting on the couch with my wife. And for anyone who's ever had a psychedelic experience, then you'll understand this. For those who don't, it'll sound funny, but like I just broke down. And it was at the very, very end of the trip itself. And I was just breaking down. And I said to my wife, I was like, I've just been so selfish. And she looks at me and she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I've just been so selfish. I need to care for my people more. I need to truly care about people and help people. And she's like, babe, you do help people. Like, you got your show, you've got your clients, you've got all these other things you do. And it's like, but I could be helping them more. And I've just let this ego of what I want get in the way. It's about what I want, what I'm building, where I'm going. And I realized during that experience, two things. Number one, nothing is urgent. Nothing is so urgent that it has to be done in this moment. Everything will roll out in due time. Just like when you mentioned, things will look completely different 5 years from now, right? And you can take control of how things look different to a certain extent, right? And the second thing was that everything will be okay with me. No matter what, I'm going to be okay. I know that. My belief is that no matter what happens, I will be fine. Instead, focus on other people and place my focus on others and help others. And that complete shedding of the ego was absolutely transformational for me.
I think that's what true humility. I believe true humility is recognizing and accepting the truth. It just, I believe that at a deep level. We have had clients, I've had clients in the past, and this is what tends to happen. They have a low level of self-belief that they're actually capable of accomplishing their goals. And what they do to counteract that is they overshoot self-worth. And when you overshoot self-worth, you're egoing. So I had somebody say to me one time, no, I know we're going to be successful. I know I'm going to be on stage one day. And I said, based on what data? Based on what? Because I know you're capable and I know you're intrinsically valuable as a human being. I'm not saying you're not. Unfortunately, you have to bring that intrinsic value into the world and it has to be deliverable. You have to have that. So I think the ego, just like people egoing up and being arrogant, on the other end too, if you shell up and your ego causes you to turn into a corner and run away from the world, that's another problem too, where either way, your ego is hurting you. But I think so many people see ego as the anger, the arrogance, that. Ego is limiting beliefs. Not believing you're capable of accomplishing what you want is your ego, your protector coming up, holding you back from pain. Your ego protects you from pain, no matter what side it's on, either way. And I think we all have a natural state. I am not an angry human. Do I get bouts of anger? Absolutely, of course. I think everybody does. I am a shell-up human. When I get insecure, I get quiet. I get mousy. Where other people, they get insecure, they get fired up. So I think everybody has a natural state. You got to figure out what your state is, what your triggers are, and what does that actually mean in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. We've got a lot of commonalities, man. It's cool talking to you about it.
I knew when I started talking to you, and when you said you're a high ego person, I didn't get that. So that was a surprise to me. I didn't feel that.
It's awareness, it's that conscious work, especially before I started working on myself in my early 20s. The ego I wasn't conscious of it. It was giant, and I didn't understand why I got the response from people that I got. But looking back, I believe that, ego has its pros as well as many cons, but I believe it has its pros. It can, I should say, inspire self-belief. It can inspire competitiveness and performance. And there definitely are parts of the ego that are good, but there's so many parts that are not that. And like you said, just being aware that that's there and being aware of when those egoic thoughts enter into your realm of thought, it's realizing that's not me, that's my ego that's talking right now. But I'm curious from you, when you decided to change your environment, because I loved this part of the conversation, when you did change your environment and you went through that tumultuous time of 3 years where money was tight, you were putting things on credit cards, you were figuring things out. Like, did you discover your purpose and mission as you know it now during that time? Or when did you finally discover, this is what I'm meant to be doing and this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life?
I think it's a culmination of things. And here's why I say that. Back when there's always clues. Right? Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward. I remember driving when I was a truck driver, and I would listen to the radio. And I used to think to myself, imagine if you could get in front of a microphone, talk for 3-4 hours a day, and that was your job. That would be amazing. Okay, cool. Store that away. I remember I did my first Facebook Live, I think in 2013, maybe? 14? I don't know. I did a Facebook Live on, I remember the title, Do You Deserve to Be Happy? And my whole process in that thought was, you deserve what you work for. Nobody deserves success. Nobody deserves the body of their dream, financial freedom, whatever it is. You deserve what you work for. And that was a hyper-conscious thought that I had back then. So looking back, it all makes sense. I believe that I found my deep inner calling when I was sitting at the edge of the bed suicidal. My goal is to be the person that I needed when I was at the lowest point. I mean, that's why I answer my DMs. That's why I do reckless, unscalable things where people can text me and I try to help. Like, that's just who I have to be. I have to be that. I don't know how else to explain it. I have very audacious goals, but I want to be the most relatable billionaire you've ever met. Like, that is what I'm playing for. I want to be unreasonably relatable. Now, will I lose some of that? Of course. But I don't ever want to get too much to forget where I came from. So I do believe it was the pain and the necessity sitting on the edge of the bed. And then it was, what's the vehicle to do that? Well, I'm already doing the podcast, connecting. I love speaking. I love deep topics. How does that all happen? And then just rolling with it. I think you have to try a bunch of stuff. I really do. I think that everybody's waiting for their purpose to come to them. Not everybody, but many people are waiting for their purpose to come to them. You might have already done it. You just don't know it yet. You got to go try a bunch of different stuff. I thought traveling in construction was great until it didn't serve the purpose anymore. And then I said, oh, that's not it. I love driving a truck because I liked being by myself for 8 hours a day, but that's not what I'm playing for, right? So I think you have to look at what you've done and look at the things that you've always longed for in the past. I was jealous of radio hosts. I just genuinely was, because it seemed like an awesome job. And now I get to do that in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's connected.
Oh my God. Love that idea of looking at what you've done and also looking at what you used to look at and feel envy about. Like, for me, I remember, it's weird because I'm into music, but it's not what I'm pursuing professionally. But I remember I used to watch YouTube videos of people on stage, live performers, and it wasn't envy as much as it was like awe at what they've been able to create for themselves and do and be on stage and rock the house. And I always remember I used to say to my dad, I'm going to be on TV one day and everyone is going to know my name. I looked at my dad. I was probably maybe 8 years old when I said that to him. And again, that was all ego. I want them to know me rather than me wanting to help them, right? But obviously it's changed. It got to the point where I would then watch people delivering team trainings in the sales environment I worked in. And I used to think, again, ego, like, I sell more than they do. Why am I not the person up there? But it went down to the deep-rooted desire to be that person in the front of the room, to be the educator, which is what I found is the thing that I would never outsource. I love to be the one helping and educating and teaching and training. I wanted to be a teacher at some point. Now I get to do that on a broad scale, which is super exciting. But that idea of looking at what you've done in the past and asking yourself, what are those things that I've done that have filled me with life? The things that truly lit my fire, right? That ignited the flame. What were those things that made me feel so good? And asking yourself, well, how can I incorporate those things into my life and business? But also, like what you said, you're intrinsically valuable, but how can you turn that into something that is valuable for other people?
Yeah. I had a conversation with Alan the other day. I love rapping. I've always been.
I get that vibe.
Do you? I love that. I love that. I've always been a huge fan of it. And for a long time, it was like, who am I to be a rapper? I can't rap. And I started rapping and putting them up on Instagram, and I got some really good feedback. And I stopped doing it because we got busy. And Alan said, you need to start rapping more. He said, Kevin, what comes unreasonably easy to you that you don't do anymore? And I said rapping. I remember, I'll never forget, over AOL Instant Messenger, back in whatever year that was, my friends and I were having like a little competition, and we started rapping words. And it was like, all right, let's see who can rap the most words. And he would say cat, and I would say pat. He would say bat, I would say fat. And then I started doing 2 syllables. So like fast car, NASCAR, past bar, whatever, right? And it started that way. And then it got to the point where I was rapping 3 or 4 syllables, and he was still only able to do 1. And I remember that. And just writing music comes very, very easy to me. So that's a whole nother thing too. If you're out there, what comes wildly easy to you? What comes very, very, very easy to you that you enjoy? There's a chance that that's something that your quantum abilities will help you take on. I'm 5'4", Brandon. I'm not going to play in the NBA. Now, could I if I dedicated every day from the age of 5? Yeah, sure. right? But I'm not going to most likely, the odds and the statistics are higher that I don't do that. They're higher that I'm a bodybuilder because I'm 5'4" and I can put on muscle well. Okay. So I think you got to play the statistics as well. But my point with that is you have to look at what you admire about other people and then measure in like what comes very, very, very easily to you. Because you can, if you're already up on a pedestal a little bit, odds are you're going to make more progress than if it's something that you're just not good at. I think I'm a naturally decent speaker. I don't think I was ever great by any stretch of the imagination, but I remember being better than most when we started podcasting.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that adds now, but there are certain things that I'm just not great at that I think I'm going against the current if I try to get too good at.
I understand. Yeah. It's like taking the path, and it sounds like a weakness, but it's not at all. It's taking the path of least resistance, because rather than say, you know, I've just always been good at this, it's too easy for me. Maybe there's a reason why that certain activity is easy for you. Like you said, maybe there's a quantum reason. Maybe if you believe that things are designed, maybe you were designed to do a specific task or a specific role. And if that's the case, why not go all into that so you can be the best in the world at what it is you're doing? Because like you said, you could have been in the NBA, but chances are that wasn't something you were passionate about, and chances are that statistically is against you. Does that mean it's not possible for you? Absolutely not. Does that mean it's the best thing for you to do? Also, absolutely not.
Yeah.
When you got out of the environment that you were in and you went through that 3-year journey of building the business with Alan, doing the podcast, you know, really making the way to where you are now, when did you realize how you can take that value and add value to other people? So I guess asking it in a different way, even, how did you discover what business model to adopt for yourself in order to help the most people? Because your mission was, I want to reach everybody in the world. How did you distill that into an actual process or a product or a certain piece of value?
Yeah. So again, full disclaimer, Alan has an MBA and he went to WPI, which is one of the highest technical schools in the world. So he is the one who is the visionary when it comes to that. What I will tell you is, anybody out there, you have to figure out what is the minimal viable product, like the minimum viable product that you have. I remember Alan and I talking, and I said, I have to start making money. I don't know what to do. And I started coaching for free. That is how the business really started. I started coaching somebody named Jenna, who is now on our team. She works with us, which is amazing. And I said, hey, I'm running a beta testing group for coaching. Is that something you'd be interested in? And she said, yeah, I'd love to try it. And I coached her for 2 months for free. And at the end of the 2 months, I said, hey, I can't do this for free anymore because my schedule's busier now than it was before. What do you think of $50 a week? And that was it. That is how I started what we have. And then it was very much, and this is the other thing too, I never knew I was going to have a podcast production service. I never knew that. That was never part of the plan. But when you've done more episodes than everybody else, not everybody, but there's obviously people who have done more, but when you're in the top 1% of 1% of 1% of podcast productions, it's kind of like, what am I wildly good at that has become really easy to me? And then we built a business on it. And then Alan, what is he wildly good at? Business. He's wildly good at. How do we monetize it? Working one-to-one. Awesome. So I really think it was Alan and I figuring out our genius zones early and just finding a way to stay there and then scale it. That really is the business model, is like, what are we the best at and what can we do the most? Really, that is it.
Wow.
It's very brute force, Brandon. Like, our approach is not, we don't run ads. I don't care about passive income, really. Like, that's not what, we do have passive because our clients are on monthly things, but still, our thing is, and it's the Gary Vee thing. The person who adds the most value wins on the back end. I believe that more than I ever had. I had a client reach out to me the other day. I have not spoken to this person in 3 months, but I did a free call and I answered all the questions. And I said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And he reached out and said, hey, surprise, I just left my job. Let's do this podcast thing. It's like, cool. Didn't know that was going to happen. But going back to your point, every interaction I have, I try to make sure it's about the other person. I try to say, hey, what can I help you with? What can I don't care. Don't pay me. You don't have to pay me. Like, what can I help you with? Well, how do I make money? This is the way to make money from podcasting. Anything else? How do I do this? Yeah, this is the way you do that. Anything else? No? Okay, cool. Best of luck. If you need anything, reach out. And then, cool. Sometimes people become clients. Sometimes they don't. But I think you have to understand that your goal is to build relationships, especially if you're a personal brand. I mean, if Amazon messes up your order, they fix it. They fix it. They do. You have a good relationship with Amazon, right? Like, that's just the way it is. The Chick-fil-A, they will change your oil. Like, if you have an oil leak, they'll crawl under your car and change your oil while you're getting your chicken sandwich. Their customer service is world-class. They are client-focused. They are customer-focused. When you're customer-focused, your customers focus on you. And that's the way to win long-term. So that's one thing we do, for sure.
That's amazing. I appreciate you going into that. And
of course.
The transparency with that, because it's the story of you start small and you figure out what works, you figure out how to monetize it, and you do, but you never take your eye off the real prize, which is adding value to other people. And that's very cliche to say, even adding value now. It's just help other human beings and do for other people. And I'm reading, have you ever read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius?
I have not. Alan has recommended it. Now that you have, I'll have to do it.
It's a very interesting read because it's a lot of like individual journal entries, but this Roman emperor from back in the day, he reflected a lot on just his role of being an emperor and asking even like, who am I to be an emperor? You know, like what does that even mean? One person above others. And he was like one of the first Roman emperors who ever really took a step back and said, I'm just going to focus on doing the most for my people and doing the most for other people. And he reflected on death and a lot of other things, but he spoke about what we're talking about right now, doing for others. And even if you're in a company or organization and you're saying, well, I don't have a business, how can I do this? Well, think about this in terms of adding value to your organization and the customers inside of it. And if you're not customer facing, how can you create a better experience for the customers by adding value to your organization? Like, it's finding ways to create big goals professionally or personally. And again, it goes back to who you become on the way to achieving those goals. Because if you are the most valuable person, it's going to be very difficult to replace you. Now, you sparked my interest when you said, you know, we created this course, right? Which we're going to talk about now, Next Level University. And you had intentions on actually putting a price tag behind this. It's a giant course, guys. If you click the link in the comments or the description, wherever you're watching or listening, you'll be brought to Teachable, where you'll see the course there. And it's a lot. And the lessons are vast, and there's worksheets and everything else that goes along with it. And you put a price tag on this at first, but you said, why not just make this free to help even more people as they go through this? What was your motivation behind Next Level University? And just tell me a bit about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So that name of that course is actually What It Takes to Live Your Dream Life. So I don't know. Maybe Laura, when she sent it, she sent you the wrong name. But
okay.
Honestly, it was this. It was, what course would I need if I was starting my journey? And Alan and I sat down and we said, well, think about it. Community is super important. Confidence is super important. Clarity is super important. What else is important when it comes to achieving your dreams? And we just sat down and we came up with 5 different things that we think are the most important things for somebody, especially starting out. And I think at the end of the day, all self-improvement really is the fundamentals. It's about learning the fundamentals, practicing the fundamentals, and then finding the layers under them. And yeah, that's our goal. Again, totally free. It comes with downloadable worksheets. You can download the whole course. All you got to do is enter your email. Yes, you will be on our email list, but we only send 1 email a week, and it's only a value add. We do not sell on our email list. So again, going back to that, our thought was this, Brandon: how do we help more people? How do we help more people? I think that if you focus on that long enough, you'll win. You'll win because people want more help. So if you help 100 people at a level 2, and then 10 people want help at a level 3, that's something else. And 8 people want help at a level 4. Maybe that's paid. Okay, cool. That's group coaching, our cheapest thing. Cool. And then a couple people want help at level 7. That's one-on-one. Okay. And then a couple people want level 10. They come to a retreat. I just think that at the end of the day, there's so many people who are trying to fit people into customer slots when they're not customers. Like, Do you want to get good at sales? Start selling to the right people. That's it. That's it. I'm not good at sales. I'm just good at telling the truth. Like, this isn't good for you. You make $100 a month on your podcast. Don't give me $997. It's just not good. It's not a good fit right now. So I think that all it is finding the right fit. That's it. That free course, I am selling you on the free course by saying, look, it's free. If you're in the position right now where you don't have the money to invest in a one-on-one coach or a paid course, just try this. If you don't like it, then don't worry about it. It's not going to cost you anything, right? So I believe at the end of the day, it's about finding the right fit for the right person. And then when they're ready to move down to the ladder to more value, then you have an opportunity for them there. And that's how you make money. Add more value. That course is valuable, but one-on-one coaching is always going to be more.
Wow. Yeah, I think you've inspired me to give more when it comes to what I give for free to the people who I want to help, because like you said, if you help 100 people, some people are going to want the level 3 tier, level 4 tier. They're going to want to go deeper because they'll have taken away so much from the first tier. And I absolutely love that. So again, guys, What It Takes to Live Your Dream Life. The link is in the comments to go check that out and see if it's something that would make a difference for you right now in your life. So Kevin, my final question for you is, where's the best place that we can find you and follow along with what you, Alan, and Next Level University are doing?
So the podcast is the #1 place. I always point people there. Again, the free thing, naturally. 7 episodes a week. We're on all the podcast platforms. Every episode's on YouTube. We do 6 solo episodes, and then we have a world-class guest. So today, I'm not sure who we're having. We're interviewing somebody today. But yeah, that's the best place. And then if you want to talk to me, just reach out to me on Instagram. I will send you, if you follow me, I will send you a video. It might take me a week to do it, but that is my goal, to send everybody videos. And then last thing, Brandon, I want to give you a little credit. In the intro, I saw that you said, we don't do ads, we don't do sponsorships. Love it. I think that so many people do that, not thinking about the customer, like the listener of the podcast. So many people get big and they run 5 minutes of ads at the beginning. It's not good. It's not good for the consumer. It's really about delivering value and then making sure you're continuing to deliver value expected at each level. I don't like the term, what is it? So that people say over deliver, like under promise and over deliver. I don't like that. What if you promise and over deliver? Why do you have to under promise? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why can't you just promise and then over deliver?
Yeah.
It never clicks for me.
It's like manipulative, right? I'm going to under promise and make it seem like I'm giving you more.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Just deliver.
Yeah.
Just promise and deliver.
That's
and then over deliver.
Hell yeah. No, I appreciate the kudos. And again, like,
of course,
I've got my programs where I do make the money, right? So why have that at every single level? Yeah. Have it make logical sense so that you can reach people at whatever level they're currently at, because people will ascend that ladder, right? It's just natural. Time is going to pass. So Kevin, I've taken a lot of your time, long episode, which is amazing. Thank you for being here. Incredible discussion. And it was a true honor to meet you. And I look forward to continuing this relationship. Thank you.
Likewise. I appreciate the questions, the research. It was truly wonderful. It was as wonderful as I expected. So I'm very glad. Very glad.
Awesome. Thank you very much. What a conversation about Kevin's own personal transformation from him in his early to mid-20s to where he is now, operating a business with his partner, Alan, Next Level University, one of the top podcasts when it comes to personal development. Again, guys, there was a lot of nuggets of information from this conversation. To continue this journey with Next Level University and Kevin, click the links in the description. You'll find their podcasts. You'll find Kevin's Instagram, and you'll also find the link to download or go through What It Takes to Live Your Dream Life. So whatever stage you're at, that will help guide your decision of what link you're going to click. But no matter what you do, follow the podcast. These guys are doing incredible things. It's very well produced. It's pleasurable to listen to, and it's good for when you're at the gym, in the car, whatever it might be. If you took anything out of this conversation, share this show with just one person who can use it the most. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.